Hi there, I'm Michelle.
I'm Jim, and we are
A Tea of Your Own. Welcome to another Motivational Monday.
Let's get motivated.
Woohoo! It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's not bad. We didn't get the rain we were supposed to get yesterday.
No, not nearly as much as we were.
No.
We got a little, I think.
Yeah, and I know Friday, Saturday, even last Thursday, gorgeous.
Yeah, we've had some nice days.
Gorgeous weather.
Yeah.
So summer is here, which is nice.
Even though the weather we've been getting has been a little more like spring weather as opposed to summer weather. So hope it stays that way.
Yes. It's June. Can you believe it's June?
Yeah, I can believe it's June.
It's Katie's birthday.
I know.
Our daughter's getting closer to old.
Depends on your definition of old.
Well, you're old, so.
Okay.
You've been old.
If you say so.
I know so. But today's our daughter's birthday, so happy birthday, Katie.
Happy birthday.
Not that she watches this.
No.
Anyway, we've been talking about the different topics that we actually talk about. We started off with influence and how small changes can have big results and how everybody needs influence. It doesn't matter what you do, who you are, everybody needs to increase their ethical influence with other people. Then we moved on to delegation and the secret to having it all. Because the reality is you can have it all, you just can't do it all. And that's where the delegation part comes in. You should be spending time focusing on only what you do well as opposed to, what other people could do for you. And then last week, we talked about the power of partnership and how organizations should partner with all of the people within that organization and with customers and with vendors and everything to provide the best products and services that they can and to really have far-reaching goals and far-reaching effects when it comes to what the organization can do if they all partner with one another and work together towards common goals. So this week, we're going to talk about a topic that Jim has talked about several times.
Yes.
And actually, it's about overcoming obstacles. And he has a talk that he does on his muddy adventure. I also have a thing that I do on overcoming obstacles. It's not nearly as funny as what you do with my muddy but adventure. So we're going to talk about his muddy adventure. And the title comes from the fact that you did indeed have quite the muddy adventure.
Yes, I did.
And so all of this started 5 years ago.
It was, yes, it was in 2019.
2019. So 5 years ago.
Pre-COVID. I mean, actually, the story goes back to 2018.
Okay.
And that's when I looked at my physical condition, and it was not good. I was in pretty bad shape. We really hadn't been working out a whole lot, hadn't been eating right. I was kicking back up to a weight that I did not like at all. And so I decided I needed to do something about it. And we started off trying to go back to running.
No, you started.
I started off going back.
I don't
trying to go back to running. Running was something that I did when I was, I guess I was always overweight when I was in school, junior high, high school. I was a big guy. And senior year, one day, I do not know what possessed me.
The spirit moved you?
Something happened. One day, I decided to strap on my tennis shoes and go try to run. And I made it maybe two or three blocks, and I was gassed. And so I stopped and I turned around and I walked back home. The next day, decided to do it again.
Mhm.
And strapped on the shoes, went running, and went about twice as far as I did on the first day. And when I got gassed, I stopped and I turned around and I walked back home. I kept doing that every day. And in the span of just 2 weeks, now understand I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
So you understand why I was able to do this. But in the span of 2 weeks, I went from not running, not exercising, not moving much at all. I say that. It was actually after wrestling season, and I did wrestle.
I was
So
gonna say, you played football.
I played football, and then
You
I
wrestled.
wrestled.
You played
Yes.
baseball.
Yes, but I was in football. I was a lineman.
Right.
In wrestling, I wrestled in the unlimited weight class, so you could eat anything you wanted, and it was to my benefit to be bigger.
Mhm.
But after that, I said high school sports were done. We didn't play baseball at the high school. That was at the DYA. I was living overseas at the time, so living in Germany, West Germany. Yeah, got to make that distinction. It was West Germany at the time. And in the span of 2 weeks, went from not running at all to 6 miles a day. It happened just that fast. And it's because every day I would go out and try to do twice as much as what I'd done the day before. And very quickly, it was 6 miles. And very quickly, because the weight, I started watching what I was eating a little more carefully, which is hard to do when you're feeding a family of 6 to have specific food for somebody. And just the running, weight started falling off of me. And as that happened, I then set a goal. And my goal was, because when I started this process, I weighed about 235 pounds.
That's when you were in high school.
That's when I was in high school. My goal was to be down to 170, and that started, I guess that would have been February or March of, yes, I'm getting there. And by the time my goal was to make it down to 175 by the time I graduated high school, by the time I made a graduation, and I did that. So I'd done this before with running and decided, okay, well, I could do that again. Well, it's a little older. And tried the running. We actually did a 5K sort of a run. And what I found was the running wasn't satisfying to me. One, it was rough on the knees.
Mm-hmm.
Two, it just wasn't doing the same thing for me. That constant cardio. It wasn't getting me where I needed to go. So I decided I needed to try something a little different, a little more full body, total body.
Mm-hmm.
And I had seen obstacle course running on television
Mm-hmm.
and heard about it. And
Saw it on the TV.
Yeah, saw it on the TV.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, maybe that would be a thing to do. And I made the mistake. I mean, I wasn't ready to do it at the time. Made the mistake of discussing that with my students. One of my students said, "Hey, there's one coming up in a couple of months. You should do that one." I knew exactly what he was talking about. It was Mud on the Mountain at Seven Springs.
Which is a ski resort.
Ski resort, yeah. And I knew that this one is really tough, be an extremely hard one to start. And so immediately I started looking for a way to get out, like an animal in a trap. Started looking for a way to try to get out. So I said, well, got a problem with this. One, I don't want to run alone. And two, it's kind of expensive to sign up for it. And the student said, no problem. You can join the team that I'm running with, so you don't have to run alone. And if you run with the team, it's only half price for you to run.
And this is why you don't share your dreams and goals with other people.
Because that happens sometimes. Definitely happens.
Because all of a sudden, you actually have to work toward your dreams and goals.
Boom, I was in the trap.
Yep.
I had to go. So bright and early on a Saturday in May, I found myself standing in a room full of people who were much younger than me, all wearing the same T-shirt because I ended up running with a team from the Somerset Trust Bank, which is a regional bank in our area that is just growing like crazy.
Much younger group.
Yeah. And they have a lot of very young people. So yes.
Who are in shape.
Yeah, who are in shape. So I even have a picture of me with that student and one of my former students who also worked with Somerset Trust Bank. And yeah, it looks like a Sesame Street thing where one of these things is not like the others. And that was me. But I was there, ready to go, started the race, off we went. I felt pretty good because I had done some training to try to get ready for that. But I only had about a 2-month window, and there was just absolutely no way I was going to be ready for it. Not with the shape that I was in when I started that. And off we went. Felt good for about the first 50 yards.
That far?
That far. But that was also because the first chunk of that 50 yards was downhill. And then it made a right turn and it went uphill. Yeah. As soon as it started going uphill, all of a sudden it didn't feel so good. But I slowed down, did a slow jog, a lot of time walking, but I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people walking up these hills and slopes. But was going along, felt good. Hadn't gotten really muddy. Went through the first obstacle, managed to not get real muddy. Get things going great. Then got to an obstacle called skid mark. There's a reason they called it skid mark. You had no choice but to get down in the mud. And it was tough from that point on.
Yeah,
I got so coated in it. Fortunately, got to another obstacle.
That was water.
Water. It's trout line. Got into that one, and that knocked the mud off, but you had to go through some very cold water to get there. And it was just crossing this rushing water with 2 ropes. So made it through that. Got to my first climbing obstacle. And as I was approaching it, watched somebody, a young man who was climbing that obstacle, and he fell off. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hope I don't do that. Well, I'd planted the seed in my mind. Don't do this.
And that's
what I should have said is, I'm going to make it over that obstacle. I took the wrong approach.
Yes, you did.
And as I climbed the obstacle, I fell. Did discover something interesting about that, though. When the 25-year-old guy fell, everybody laughed their heads off, and he popped right back up, and he went up and made it the second time. When I fell off the obstacle, nobody laughed. They came running over to make sure that I wasn't dead. Guess that's what happens when you have old people on obstacle course races. But I was fine, just got a lot of mud on the back of my shirt. And second time I figured out it was a frame with tires, ropes suspending the tires in between the squares on the frame. I tried using the tires the first time. Stupid. Used the frame the second time, got over.
So part of what you talk about when it comes to your muddy adventure is some of the stuff that you learn.
Yeah.
And like you said, you learn not to share what it is that you want to do until you're almost ready to do it.
That's usually a good idea, even though I think if you share it and you've got more than enough time, you've got that long runway or long enough runway to prepare for it. That's fine, because now people will hold you accountable. That was the one thing. I had to show up.
Yeah.
I had to be there. They were expecting me. And so it did provide that accountability.
Yes.
So in that regard, it's a good thing. And the other thing is, I can give away the story here. Obviously, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
And now I made it. I finished the course.
You did.
Now, understand, this was 7.7 miles up and down ski slopes.
Yes.
I made it.
Well,
I was sore as a dickens when I was finished.
And
I walked through the finish line, but I made it.
And the other thing is you learn. You were constantly learning as you were going along, and you were adjusting.
Right.
And you didn't change the goal because the goal was to finish.
Goal was finish.
You don't change the goal. You just change the strategy, change the approach.
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the things that you learn from your Muddy Adventure.
Right. Every time that I would fail on an obstacle, I would look at it and try to figure out a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I figured out a different approach and I made it.
And it's the same with people going through life. It's the same with organizations. You come across these obstacles,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you got to figure out, how to go over it, how do you go around it, how do you go under it, how do you go through it. And that's one of the things that you learned.
Right.
Was how do you make those adjustments to go through this?
Yeah. Like sometimes, like I was saying, when I went through the one obstacle where I got just coated in mud, well, I knew I couldn't. It was going to be tough to continue to run like that.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, had the water obstacle figured out. Some people tried to go through that as fast as they could. I used it as an opportunity to get all this mud off my body because it was already caking and it was just going to weigh me down. And so I took my time going through that. So I used that obstacle to help me with future obstacles.
And so that's what your Muddy Adventure is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me when I tell you, there's a lot of humor that gets added into your Muddy Adventure.
Yeah, if I'm doing the presentation, it's very funny.
It is, which is part of what we do. We try to interject humor into a lot of the trainings and a lot of the speaking topics that
and then if I had time to do the full-blown story, I thought as I was going through that experience that I will never, ever do anything like this ever again. No, I went and did some more.
You didn't do anything that was that long.
No, I did not do anything that was that long. I started seeking out the 5K obstacle runs, which are far more manageable.
Yeah.
And what I found is I actually enjoyed them. And what I enjoyed was the challenge of trying to figure out how do you approach every obstacle. Other thing that you learn is that sometimes there's some obstacles that you just can't overcome. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, you have to figure out a way. You may have to go around them. You may have to take the penalty because sometimes you're just not ready for something. I know there was one run that we went to. There was it wasn't like a warped wall, but you had to run up this wall. It was, and they had one on each side that was less steep, and then they had the one in the middle that was much steeper and taller. And
is that the Warrior Dash?
I think it was the Warrior Dash.
Okay.
And I made an attempt at the tall one in the middle, and I got fairly close.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it. The problem with it is it wasn't coated with anything, so I could feel and it was wood, and so I could feel the bits and pieces of wood hitting my legs. And on the way back, sliding back down, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a massive splinter out of this somewhere. So I didn't try it a second time just because of that. It seemed unsafe. So I went up one of the less steep ones and made that. But I know the first time that I had to face a warped wall type, it was at a Tough Mudder, and there people actually help.
They help you. Yeah, they help pull you up.
But I remember I managed to make it up on the first try. Yeah. She told me afterwards she was amazingly surprised and impressed because she had already calculated in her mind it was going to take me 3 or 4 tries to get up. So, sometimes you can overcome an obstacle much faster than somebody might expect that you can. That's another thing that I learned. Yeah. So, yeah.
So, that's just one of the topics that we talk about is your Muddy Adventure and how to overcome some of the obstacles and some of the challenges that you're facing there in life and in business. So if somebody wanted to bring us in and to hear more about your Muddy Adventure or to learn more about overcoming obstacles, how could they contact us?
Well, they could give us a phone call. There's the phone number on the screen, 412-420-7975.
Yep.
If they don't want to talk to us, they can send us a text message. Yep. We'll send you a message back.
Yep.
Give you a call.
Yeah.
You can send us an email, info@ateagueofyourown.com.
Yep.
You can go to our website.
Yeah,
and the website is just ateagueofyourown.com. So take off the info at.
There.
And It's ateagueofyourown.com.
Yep.
And then also through our social media.
Yeah.
We have Facebook, we have Instagram, LinkedIn, and we have a YouTube channel.
Yep.
And we would appreciate you liking and subscribing to all of them.
Yes. Yes, please. So there you have it. That's a little bit of information about your muddy adventure.
My Muddy Adventure.
And how we incorporate, overcoming obstacles.
Yeah, actually have given that presentation, won awards for it, and a humor speech contest. So
yes, and it does get funny, let me tell you, especially when you find out that sometimes he falls and people do laugh.
Yeah, I didn't include that part, but yeah, and you can find out how that happens.
Yeah. All right, so next week we actually have a guest.
Oh, okay, good.
So we got a guest next week. You'll learn more about that later. But the week after that, we're going to talk about what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about turning 21 again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you'll hear all about that. Another funny topic, and another one where there's lots of lessons that apply to businesses.
I wouldn't know anything about turning 21 again. I passed 21 and just kept watching it get smaller and smaller in the rearview mirror.
It's way little for you right now.
Well,
Yeah.
That's life.
Yes. All right, so in the meantime, have a great week. We will see you next week. If you need to get in contact with us, like we said, go to the website, give us a call, shoot us an email, and we look forward to seeing you then. Bye.
Bye.